We will now call to meet a session, the Planning Commission meeting for May 7th, 2023. Shannon, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Have all commissioners had the opportunity to look over the agenda for tonight's meeting? Is there a motion to adopt tonight's meeting agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the
Is-
agenda for tonight.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving to agenda number 3 is to review and approve the meeting minutes for February 20th, 2023. We'll do them separately. Is there a motion to adopt and approve the meeting minutes for February 20th?
I'll make a motion.
It's 2024, though.
Yes,
You said
February
2023.
20th, 2024.
Yeah, but you said 2023.
Oh,
Just want
sorry.
to make sure it's 2024.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that they be approved. I'll second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 2, second meeting agenda, March 19th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
April 16th, 2024. Is there a motion to adopt and approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Number 4 on the agenda, public comment period for items not on the agenda. I will open that. Is there anyone signed up?
We don't have anyone signed up now.
Okay, I will close that public comment period. Number 5 on the agenda, public hearing for certificate of appropriateness requested by William Cromwell. I will invite staff to give their presentation.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So this one is back before you. You probably remember it from I believe it was the March meeting. It is back before you because staff identified an error the morning after the meeting that the shed actually was a contributing structure within the historic district rather than a non-contributing structure. So therefore, we are bringing it back to clarify that point. So I'll run through the presentation again and then see if you have any questions. Briefly, the Tree Streets Historic District was established in 2001, and it accompanies an area with 595 structures, about 454 of which are contributing, and the majority of these are residential buildings that were constructed between 1890 and 1950. The applicant is requesting to demolish the shed located at the rear of his property. It has not been well maintained over the years and is showing signs of deterioration. He is concerned by the hazards the shed presents as it decays. He's informed staff he doesn't have the use for the shed and would like to use the area as a garden instead. And I'll note that the house and shed are both listed as contributing structures within the Tree Streets Historic District. This is that excerpt from the DHR Tree Streets Historic District registration form, and you can see that the chicken house, which is that shed, is mentioned at the tail end of that entry. This is a view of the subject property. The shed is the little white building. You can sort of see the roof here in the rear of the property along the alley. Here's a quick look at the front of the house that fronts on 677 Walnut Avenue. And then here is a look at the front of the shed. A quick look at the back of the shed. So the shed is a wood frame structure with 2 windows, 2 doors. It looks like it could be on some sort of block type foundation and has a metal or tin roof. It is in poor condition with the wood showing signs of deterioration, primarily noticeable along the shed's front here with holes in the siding and wood decaying at the entrance to one of the doors. In addition to some issues noted with the roof, looks like a hole just under the roof there. So there are signs of significant deterioration. And then a quick look at the inside. So there are 9 criteria to evaluate when considering a certificate of appropriateness. The first one is whether or not the building or structure embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, style, method of construction, represents the work of a master, possesses high artistic values, or is associated with events that make significant contribution to the broad local history, or is associated with significantly historic persons. The shed may have been used in the past as a chicken coop. It seems to have been built with simple materials, wood frame, and it doesn't represent a particularly unique or distinctive architectural asset. Second criteria is whether or not the building or structure contributes to the visible architectural value to and provides historic continuity with properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and view shed. The shed is visible from the side of the house, along the alley there, and along the back alley. It does not actively contribute to the architectural continuity, along Walnut Avenue or the adjacent public streets. The third one, whether the building or structure is of such age, authenticity, and unusual or uncommon design, setting, workmanship, and materials, and whether such design, quality, and workmanship and traditional materials could be reproduced. The shed is a wood frame structure, which is not an uncommon design and could be easily reproduced using modern building methods and materials. Fourth criteria, specific plans for the site should the structure or building be demolished, and the architectural compatibility of those plans and uses with the properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and the view shed. The applicant doesn't have any plans for replacing this shed and has indicated to staff that he wants to use the area as a garden instead. Number 5, whether it is economically and practically feasible in the opinion of a qualified structural engineer and/or building trades professional to preserve or restore the structure. In this case, the applicant has not engaged a qualified structural engineer or building trades professional to examine the shed. However, it does seem like restoration of the shed could be costly, but not necessarily difficult. The 6th, whether the property owner can make alternative economically viable uses of the property. With moderate work, the structure could be used again, perhaps as a storage building or chicken coop. Number 7, whether relocation may be appropriate or feasible as an alternative to demolition. In this case, relocation does not provide any advantages over either rehabilitation or demolition. Number 8, whether the existing structure is suited to or can be adapted to a proposed change in land use. In this case, there is no change in land use proposed. And then finally, whether the structure or building is a contributing or non-contributing structure within the HPO district. And in this case, the structure is a contributing resource in the HPO district. And staff's recommendation has not changed on this particular application. We are still recommending approval. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Would the applicant wish to speak? And just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Cromwell, and 677 Walnut Avenue. I'm not sure what the definition of a contributing structure is. What I can tell you is that this thing is not visible from anywhere but the alley of the property. You cannot see it from the street, Walnut Avenue, and anyway, I'm not sure what it contributes, except we do not have any plans to keep chickens, and nor do we plan on using it as a storage shed. So we would really like to be able to put a nice garden there. That's it.
Thank you. I hereby open the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up for the public hearing?
There is no one signed up. As you all are aware, in your packets and as part of the public record, I'm not going to read everything. There were letters submitted. Because they are in your packets and were received by you, we can count those as part of the public record. There is one additional letter that came today that I am going to read because it is not in your packet, so we'll enter that into the public record.
This comes from Beth Aaron. I live at 630 Maple Avenue. I back up to the same alley as the shed being proposed to be removed. I completely support removal of the structure as I personally had personal experience with it. I assisted the previous owner with trying to clean out and secure the structure. It was infested. There were rodents and groundhogs living in tunnels dug under rotten boards and rotten carpet samples that covered the dirt floor. The door to the shed was chewed up on the lower corner, which allowed continued access to animals. I assisted the previous owner with repairing the door by applying sheet metal to the bottom to prevent animal chewing. The animals just moved down the structure, chewing up sideboards and accessing their tunnels again. This was after her paying hundreds of dollars to have groundhogs and skunks removed professionally. The shed is rotten with a foul-smelling dirt floor from wild animals that has never been maintained appropriately. In my estimation, it should be torn down. So that is the only additional public record or comment that we have received, and no one has signed up to speak this evening.
Okay, I will hereby close the public hearing. Is there any discussion from commission?
I just have one question out of curiosity for the owners. Y'all have been in and out of that shed dozens, hundreds of times?
Well, not hundreds of times.
Well, yeah. I'm curious. What are the nail heads look like in that shed?
I have no idea. Have not even looked at them.
Because looking at those pictures, I don't see the type of construction that everybody is referencing as a historical construction in there. The joints look machine cut to me in there. And I was just out of curiosity with y'all's firsthand knowledge of it, what y'all had seen in the shed.
Truthfully, I don't look at that shed because it's so gross. So,
It's a
yeah.
hazard.
Yeah.
It's a health hazard. I mean, things have fallen down in there, and yeah, I don't spend any time.
Okay.
Didn't want to get hurt in there, so we just opened the door, looked in there, and just shut it.
I understand.
Thank you.
Are there any more discussions from commission?
I've got a question. Do you currently live in that house?
We will be living in it when we finish construction.
Okay, all right, okay.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition?
I move that we approve the certificate for the demolition.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 6 on the agenda is a public hearing for the certificate of appropriateness requested by Stacy Strait for the Wayne Theater Alliance. I'll invite staff now to give their presentation.
Okay, so this is a certificate of appropriateness application for 539 West Main Street, and it's to demolish a contributing structure in the downtown historic district. So briefly, the downtown historic district was established in 2001, and it encompasses an area with about 43 contributing structures, and most of those were built between 1806 and 1951. 539 West Main Street, this is the DHR excerpt. It was built around 1905, the structure that stands there today, but it did replace a two-story brick dwelling that had been on the site from about 1884 until it was demolished sometime between 1902 and 1907 to make way for this building. So the applicant is requesting to demolish the building. They've indicated that the repairs needed are cost prohibitive, and once demolished, they are intending to build a mixed-use building on the site with retail and commercial on the ground floor and then residential on the upper stories. And this is a very similar concept to what was presented to some of you all a couple years ago with the Leggett Building Certificate of Appropriateness. They proposed a similar redevelopment plan with commercial and retail on the first floor and then residential on the upper floors. The applicant is the Wayne Theater. They own this property and several of the parcels down the block. And they are in the midst of a master planning process for their entire campus. which is estimated to be done towards the end of this month, if they're still on that schedule. So here's a quick look at the surrounding uses. This particular building is at the corner of Church and West Main Street. You have the Studio Wayne next door with several additional Wayne Theater properties down the street, a public parking lot here. You've got the Wayne Street United Methodist Church across Church Street, Lumos in the rear on Lumos Plaza. Then across the street, you've got the Augusta Cleaners, the former News Virginia building, and then the funeral home, Reynolds and Hamrick up the street there. So the building itself is a two-story wood frame house. It's got vinyl siding over its original wooden weatherboards, and it has been vacant for the last several years. It has suffered from significant looking water damage and also has a crumbling foundation. And the building overall requires many repairs, including a completely new foundation, rewiring, replumbing, new roof, and then of course the repair of any water damage. These are a couple pictures provided by the applicant of the foundation. And these are several pictures provided by the applicant of the interior of the building, primarily showing the water damage that has taken place, along with some of the older wiring. So here again, we have the 9 criteria for evaluating COAs. And I'll start walking through those 9. So the first one is whether or not the building or structure embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, style, method of construction, represents the work of a master, possesses high artistic values, or is associated with the events that make a significant contribution to the broad local history, or is associated with historically significant persons. This building is identified as a contributing structure within the historic downtown district due to its age. It was built around 1905 and was used as the Methodist patronage until about 1942. And since then, it has been used for various commercial purposes, although it has been vacant for the last several years. The architects are unknown, and as far as staff is aware, it's not associated with any significant local event or historically significant persons. Second criteria, whether or not the building or structure contributes visible architectural value to and provides historic continuity with properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and viewshed. In this case, this building is in a highly visible location at the top of that hill on West Main Street as you descend into the downtown. It is visible from West Main, Church Street, and Loomis Plaza. And the demolition could have a negative impact on the street wall if it's not redeveloped shortly thereafter. The applicant has indicated to staff that the building wouldn't be demolished until site plans were submitted to the city, reviewed, and approved. And then here's a look at the structure and its prominent location at the top of the hill as you head into the downtown area. It does have a couple defining characteristics. Most prominently is the Queen Anne style attic window, which is a multi-pane window. And then the second defining characteristic are the turned balusters and posts on that front porch that wraps around the structure. Third criteria, whether the building or structure is of such age, authenticity, or unusual or uncommon design, setting, workmanship, materials, and whether such design, quality, and workmanship in traditional materials could be reproduced. The house was built around 1905. The vinyl siding covers its original wooden weatherboards, original wooden siding. It has a couple of its remaining original features, which are that Queen Anne style window, and also those that turned balusters, the post and balusters on that front porch. Then also 1/1 double hung sash windows are all original. Its construction isn't particularly distinct, and it could be reproduced using modern materials and methods. And then specific plans for the site should the structure or building be demolished, and the architectural compatibility of those plans and uses with the properties within the same block, including both sides of the street and the view shed. So a preliminary design concept that was submitted by the applicant shows this building being replaced by a mixed-use facility. The concept doesn't include a timeline as of yet, and no site plans have been submitted to date. And as I mentioned before, the applicant has indicated to staff that the building wouldn't be demolished before those site plans were submitted and to the city for review and approval. Staff does have a couple concerns in this area regarding compatibility, namely the compatibility of the new development with the neighboring properties on that block and within its view shed. This parcel is at the prominent location at the top of that hill, and so there's some factors to consider when redeveloping that site. Staff does have hesitancy to recommend approval without a detailed site plan and an evaluation of the architectural compatibility with the neighboring properties. Here again, it's just another look at the building and its prominent position at the top of West Main. And this is a look at a preliminary concept that was submitted by the applicant. I have a couple other pictures on the next slide, but outlines that lower level, sort of in the rear area, probably because of the elevation difference being primarily for parking. You have the ground floor closer to the street level with retail and commercial, then with the upper stories being residential. And the applicant has identified a couple different approaches. We've picked the two that we think they might go with. One of the two. They might go with one of the two that we have here, from what we understand. The first shows, if you're looking at it from the top of the hill, you have retail and commercial on this ground level flooring with some residential built up behind. If you look at it from down the street, you're looking up the hill. It maintains that street wall. It keeps the front part of the structure level or even with the neighboring buildings, so it complements the surrounding development. And then you can see the residential built up behind it a hair, but overall that maintains that street wall. And then just a look from above of that approach. The other approach that they are looking at is a little different. You have a commercial and retail of a couple floors, but lower along the street wall, trying to maintain that street wall as you're looking up the hill. And then you sort of step back and you have the upper floors and then residential along behind. So moving on to number 5, whether it is economically and practically feasible in the opinion of a qualified structural engineer or building trades professional to preserve or restore the structure. The applicant did have several building trades professionals take a look at the building and provide estimates as to what kind of repairs and how much those would cost. They're estimated to be over $452,600 and would include replacing the foundation, replacing the wiring and plumbing, replacing the roof, replacing the front porch, and repairing those front steps. And then number 6, whether the property owner can make alternative, economically viable uses of the property. This building is not particularly specialized. It has been used for commercial use in the past, and it could be reused for any number of office or commercial uses once it's been renovated. Number 7, whether relocation may be appropriate and feasible as an alternative to demolition. In this case, relocation doesn't provide any advantages over rehab or demo in this case. And then whether the existing structure is suited to or can be adapted to a proposed change in land use. And again, here, no change in land use is proposed. And then finally, if the structure is a contributing or non-contributing resource in the historic district. And in this case, it is a contributing resource in the downtown historic district. So in conclusion, the building isn't associated with any notable architect, historically significant persons, or is an exceptional architectural landmark. It's a highly visible location from West Main Street, Church Street, and Loomis Plaza. It has been deteriorating and not well maintained over the years, and it does now require extensive repairs to be made usable again. The applicant is in the midst of a master planning process for the entire Wayne Theater campus and is proposing a mixed-use building for this particular site. And then again, staff is concerned about the future plans and how they may or may not be compatible with the surrounding area. And so with that, staff is recommending going ahead with the public hearing this evening and then proceeding with one of the 2 following options. The first would be a recommendation, would be to recommend a motion tabling the request to a future planning commission meeting to allow the applicant time to finish their master planning process, expected at the end of May 2024, so that the fully formed concept plan for the site can be shown, presented to the planning commission. An alternative recommended motion would be that the certificate of appropriateness to demolish a contributing structure in the downtown historic district be approved based on the site's redevelopment in general conformance with the concepts that will be presented in that master plan being developed, and that any such demolition permit review and approval will be predicated on site plan review and approval. And with that, that's all I have for you, and happy to answer any questions.
Can you go back to the slides, Alison, that was showing the proposed development? What is the green and the purple building right there? Are they existing structures?
They are not,
Okay.
not at this time.
What
And-
all goes into the creation of a master plan?
I'd probably better let the applicant speak to what's going into their particular master planning process. They are here this evening, so.
And then barring the tabling of the motion until the concept is complete, would approval be a by rights approval, or would it still have to, would their plan still have to be approved because it's in a historic district?
So I think the two different motions that staff has proposed essentially get at the same thing. The first one would give you ability to see maybe what the facade might be proposed to look like and give you a little more assurances of what that would look like prior to making a decision. The second would be a motion to approve, but it would essentially say that you're basing that approval on it being something that they've proposed in their master plan. You all have not been privy to the master planning process, but it has been a very in-depth process with architectural professionals, and, no doubt we'll have some great design that goes along with it. So you wouldn't have the ability to see and have confirmation over that, but it would have to be based on that master plan and what comes out of that. So that's kind of how the two motions were crafted.
So I just have one question about the relevant historical structures that are surrounding it. The New Virginian building probably and the General Wayne, both which are in terrible states of disrepair and set the bar really, really low. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. This could be a chance to really set that entrance coming down the hill to kick things up a notch from where they are. Am I right thinking that way? I mean, I'm not crazy thinking that way, right?
No.
Any more crazy than usual.
No, and I think staff mainly just points out that it is a prominent location,
Yeah.
so you're aware of the type of things that we would look at, and they're all things that their architects have already considered. Height, how it maintains
Yeah.
that wall and that facade, so all of the things that we have thought about, their architects have also thought about and are doing crafted, careful design, yes.
Since we haven't seen the master plan, and there's only, I think you said 3 significant, unique features about the building, the Queen Anne window, the post on the front porch. Are those designs incorporated into the new building?
So at this point, that in their master planning process, they have these kind of massing drawings that essentially just shows what the height and kind of form would look like. Those more specifics in terms of whether they intend to utilize any kind of material, that stuff would maybe come towards the end of that master planning process. You'd get a little bit more feel of that. So that's kind of why we crafted the two motions. If you all have a desire to see exactly what some of that might look like prior to making a decision, then you should go with that motion. If you can look at the massing and the heights and say, I'm generally comfortable with the direction things are going, and they have a master planning process, and architects are going to come up with that, and it's going to be something that the Wayne Theater and their parties are interested in, then the second motion would be fine. So that's the reason we've kind of crafted both.
Yeah, the height and the building size themselves doesn't concern me as much as the aesthetics of it does, being it's in a prominent spot. You're comparing it, looking down across other historical buildings. What is gonna make this building, quote unquote, blend in with those so it's not a cinder block Walmart on the side of the road?
Yeah, so I think and we'll open the public hearing and let the applicant speak, but the answer to that question, I would say, is that if you were to go with the second motion and go ahead and recommend approval, staff still feels that we would have control over, once the master planning process was complete, they would provide us with a copy of that master plan, and any future demolition permit and/or site plan, we would be saying, does it match something that you've identified in the master plan? And that would, not that that's their intention at all, but if tomorrow it changed hands and there was someone totally new, that we wouldn't run the risk of losing that ability and any old thing going there. So that's why we have kind of crafted those two motions. Yes, the first one gives you a little bit more ability to see materials and more specific drawings. But the second one, we feel as staff, still provides enough assurances that it is going to be something that they have approved as part of their master plan.
Are there any more questions for staff?
I have one question. If we table the matter until their plan is complete, do we have to hold another public hearing?
I don't think so. I think that you could open and close the public hearing this evening. If there was something that changed drastically or changed materially, that wasn't discussed as part of this hearing, like if they came back with some whole new idea, which I don't envision, then we would likely recommend holding another one. But no, I don't think you would have to hold another public hearing.
Okay. Any more questions for staff? Thank you, Allison. I'd hear that the applicant's here. Would you like to speak to this? And just state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Rohr. I'm the chairman of the board of the Wayne Theater Alliance, and I live in Stanton, Virginia. I think we got the cart before the horse a little bit. That we're talking about in our master plan. It's 117,000 square feet of building. Okay, 117,000 square feet. It's a $25 million project. So phase one is to get rid of the building at the top of the hill, plant grass seed, use it for an outdoor classroom for Studio Wayne, which is the building next door to it. We just recently spent a couple $100,000 renovating it and getting it approved through the city for use for our education program. Right below it is a building that we came here about 2 years ago for, and y'all granted us a certificate of appropriateness to tear off the back part of the building. We tore off the back part of the building. We worked with Luke, who was here at the time, and we kept the front part of it because it's historical, and we've spent a bunch of money in the back, made it a nice flattened area with grass, and hopefully you can come down and watch a movie this summer there and all kinds of neat stuff. So, but it's not just as simple as showing y'all a master plan and going, hey, this is what it's going to look like. The master plan is going to change 5 more times, and I'm also a Class A contractor, and I'm a master plumber, so things are going to change, they're going to progress, and there's nothing that we could do on that hill other than tear it down and plant grass that y'all would not have to approve later. Anything that we did on that hill other than plant grass seed, y'all will have to approve at some point. So there's no way we can go up there and build a cinder block building on it without the city having approval through the planning commission, through building inspections, through there. So I think that it's, we are not in favor of tabling it, and we are not in favor of not tearing it down until you've seen a master plan that's been approved. Because again, we have a fair amount of money to raise, and it's going to change. And part of our process with the master plan is we've had council people involved in it, we've had government people involved in it, we've had citizens involved in it, we've had our board involved in it, and we've had out-of-towners involved in it. And if you look at what the Wayne Theater has done to help downtown Waynesboro, I don't think you have to say a whole lot more. And we control all the property up the top of the hill, except for the parking lot. And we're planning on being here for a long time. And if we do nothing, and it takes us 3 years to bring you a master plan back, what are you gonna do when when somebody comes, when the city inspector comes up, Mark comes over, and he condemns the building? Then what are we gonna do? We're gonna go, oh, maybe we should have torn it down and let them plant grass seed. It's not gonna be a parking lot. It's gonna be something at some point in time, and it's gonna be something nice. It's gonna be something that the city can be proud of, and it's gonna be something that the Wayne Theater can be proud of. And I think you can look at what we've done in the last 20 years with the Wayne Theater. When we inherited it, had a leaky roof and was getting ready to fall down. Now it's a showplace for Virginia. So I think our record stands for itself, and we're asking you to let us remove the building as soon as possible after proper permitting and all that. Let us plant grass seed on it, put some picnic tables on it, let us use it for the kids in the program, and then we'll be happy to work with staff and y'all and everyone else to bring this master plan to fruition.
I have a question.
Certainly.
You mentioned that you wouldn't be in favor of tabling it due to the master plan being able to be changed several times before then. From my understanding, it was well-crafted and had no intentions of changing. So to what extent?
I don't think, I've been involved in construction my entire life, and even building a single-family house on B Street, things change when you're building them. So to say that a master plan of this magnitude would never have any changes to it, I think is a little bit unrealistic. If somebody told you that, I apologize. That's not what should have been said. And again, when you look at a master plan, just take the Leggett's building, you look at it, you got a plan for what that's going to be, and so at some point, Mr. Galton may come back and go, hey, guys, we want to do this, but there's more of a need for this now, so we'd like to change it. Of course, you're going to listen to what he has to say and make a decision, and I think the same thing goes for here, is that we intend to build up the hill in a way that benefits the city and benefits our primary mission, which is to run a theater. That's what we do. We run the Wayne Theater. We show plays and movies and those kinds of things. We're into education now. We're teaching classes at Fishburne on our property. We have kids in the we have teachers in the elementary schools. They're teaching arts and science and stuff through the Wayne Theater now. So, I think that, again, it's going to be partially educational. It's going to be partially, there may be some retail. There may be some couple, there could be apartments for that. See, right now we rent hotel rooms for our actors and actresses when they come to town. So why not just leave them on campus where they can walk downtown and spend the money downtown instead of, spending it out in the county, on the west end, so to speak.
Another question that came up would be, if you were to have it torn down, and I think there was mention in the document here that there wasn't a timeline included in the master plan. Are you able to speak to whether or not you can include a timeline due to the fact that you could start construction, but then construction be delayed, and then you have a half-built building that could be delayed due to funding or whatever?
Right, well, we can't start anything anywhere until the plans are completely drawn by the engineer, taken down to inspection department, gone over, stamped, ready to go. So it's not like we can build part of a building without anybody knowing what we're building and then walk away from it.
No, absolutely. No, that wasn't.
And we're happy. It's at some point in the near future, the master plan will be, announced to the community, but that doesn't mean that the master plan is going to look exactly like what we show you
Absolutely.
in 3 months or 5 months or whatever. And we're concerned that from a safety standpoint, that if it takes a couple years in order to get to the point where we're ready to get started on it, that the building will be in such a state of repair that we'll be talking about being condemned and not something else.
Right. And the only reason for that question was because, to your point, I mean, things could change frequently.
Yes, sir.
And then, God forbid, say, for instance, something like COVID happened again, and then, construction's on
Right.
hold. Then that would bring the issue of like a half-constructed building being there due to lack of power or funding.
Right.
Is there a timeline in place to make sure that funds are properly allocated to keep the project moving along?
Yeah, man, I don't think that there's a scenario where we start the construction process without having 8 figures in the bank. I mean, we can't start the project till we have $10 million probably. I mean, we had, and then the project would be phased out. We're not gonna be able to tear the whole block apart, because we're gonna be building around the old Fox and Hound building. We're gonna be building around Studio Wayne, which is already there, and we're gonna be building around 531 West Main, which is the brick building that's there now. So all that stuff stays. Everything goes around behind it and wraps around to the top. And I can imagine what I think it's going to look like. You can imagine what you think it's going to look like, and everybody in the room can. And I don't think it'll look like what any of us think. I mean, I think it'll be close, but again, it's going to fit in with what downtown Waynesboro wants and needs, and it's going to fit in with what the theater has already done to date. I mean, we don't really have any. We're a nonprofit, so we don't have any incentive to slap something up there and go on with it, because that doesn't suit our mission. I mean, our mission, again, is to we've quietly purchased the properties on the hill as they became available, so that we could actually build what we've been dreaming about for many, many years.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If approved, what's your timetable to tear the building down?
We would like to have it torn down as soon as possible, after all the necessary approvals and permits are done, and level it out, haul all the debris away, and plant grass. And that's really all we want to do.
Because the reason I ask, having been in construction and seeing those pictures of that foundation,
Right, that's my point.
I think that thing might fall down on its own.
And that's what we don't want to happen, because this is something that's not an emergency, and if we're not careful, we can make it an emergency.
Yep.
And that's not going to help anybody out.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? No? Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up for the public hearing?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, I hereby close the public hearing. Is there any discussion between commissioners?
Let
just-
them tear it down.
well,
Let them tear it
So
down.
I don't disagree with that. I do not like the idea of an open-ended tear down where it could be 5 to 10 years with an empty lot at the top of the hill, with no plan or timetable. I'm not fine with
But
that.
then again, do you want the building to fall down the street? Having been in construction and seen the pictures of that foundation,
If-
I haven't crawled under there, but I got a feeling it's worse than them pictures said.
I don't know, I feel like the Wayne Theater Alliance
Yeah.
are people of their word and have done great things, and I have no doubt that they're going to move forward in a way that is appropriate. Everything else they've done is appropriate, and I
Yep.
think tabling it is just, I think Plan B is fine with me, the second choice. I think tabling it just, people work so hard to make things better, and do we knock it down and with a slight risk that there may be some delay in getting something better, or do we let it sit like the rest of the crumbling historic structures?
Any, Bill?
Yeah, I don't understand why the certificate of appropriateness is tied to the master plan. Is that because there's a concern that if they tear it down tomorrow, and they plant grass, that there's going to be grass there for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so the reason, so the certificate of appropriateness, although it is correct that you will have to submit building plans and they will have to be approved and everybody will have to go out and make sure that the building is sound, Waynesboro doesn't have any guidelines to say what the structure should look like. So not that they have any interest in submitting a concrete slab building or some building that is not aesthetically pleasing to the community. But if they did, or if any future applicant did, as long as it met building code requirements and other zoning requirements, staff then doesn't have the ability to say, that building just doesn't look nice. We don't think it fits in with the area as long as it meets the height, the setback, all the other things. So that is part of the reason why staff has tried to craft it this way. We also are trying to create consistency across the historic district so that any future owner that wants to come in and say, I would like to demolish my structure to build any number of things, that we're not just saying, sure, go ahead. We can't base decisions on, we have to sometimes look at what the future of the property might look like. So the reason we drafted these two recommendations was tying it to the master plan essentially gives some assurances, as they have provided so far, that it would be some type of mixed-use building and the massing would look generally like that. So if in the future they came in with a building that looked much, much different and had very drastically different massing, maybe was a lot taller, something that we felt like didn't make sense in the area, that we could say, well, the Planning Commission based their demolition approval on these concepts, that there is something there that kind of ties them to that. So that's why, we're trying to walk that middle line of, supporting a master planning process and what could come of the building, and then also just making sure that the city is, protected in the future, because these decisions run for the life of the property. And really, the only thing that we would have the ability to do if you were to approve just an outright demolition permit, would just be if the building meets height, setbacks, if it meets our regular zoning ordinance, but we wouldn't have any control over the aesthetic, massing, and architectural features of the building. So that's why staff crafted it in these two ways.
Thank you.
So, but still, no matter what they put on that lot, staff would have to approve. I mean, it would have to be approved, correct?
Yeah, we would get a submission like any, it meets the zoning ordinance. So they would submit a building and they would, but as long as it met height requirements, setback requirements, but it could look like anything. We would have no control over materials used, colors used, the things that the consistency, like when you talk about creating consistency in a district, we wouldn't have any control over those. And so that's why we've tried to kind of walk the middle ground, or what the roof
So where's the eastern edge of the historic district?
does it go past?
So that
Yeah, we think it goes to the other side of the church.
the other side, so that little house that's a daycare center or whatever that's over there?
I'd have to look at that
You mean the western?
That's right.
to pull up the map.
Because I look that way and I see that house and then I see a parking lot. Right, the back side of that hotel has a parking lot up there.
So if we would go for option 2 here, then you would have more control of what that's going to look like. Is that correct?
So what we're saying is that with 2, if you were to do 2, we think that once they finish their master planning process and they had kind of set on, and we're not saying specific designs, it has to look to the T exactly like it needs to look. It would be more just that in the future, if someone said, we really could use more parking downtown and we just want a parking lot right here and we don't want to build a building and we want to just pave it over for additional parking, that then as staff, we could look back and say, well, that wasn't what the Planning Commission was approving. So we're trying to build in your recommendation, some assurances that we would have a little bit more control over when we got submissions from a zoning standpoint, that maybe we wouldn't have if if you didn't go with 1 or 2 and you just said, we're fine with the demolition and letting them do as is, that is another motion that you can make. But staff would not have the ability to make them change certain aesthetic aspects of the project, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But regardless of either recommendation, staff will still have the ability to have a say in the appearance.
Can you answer that again? And then we did receive one comment that we forgot about related to this public hearing, so. But if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
No, I was just asking, so with either recommendation, staff's able to have an idea or a say in the appearance?
I think with the second one, we would, there's a lot of trust there. It's like the architects are going to come up with a nice conceptual design. But yes, I think we still have a little bit of assurances that if it's a certain type of building, or if it's just a parking lot someday, or if it's, any number of things that really doesn't match what the architects had designed, in a very general way, that we would have a little more teeth in that, in saying this doesn't meet the intent of the certificate of appropriateness to demolish. There's also another middle ground that you could get to. So number 2, the way it's worded at the end, it essentially would require them to submit a site plan and have it be approved prior to the demolition permit. That doesn't sound like that's their intent, although staff thought that it was. But if you wanted to create some flexibility there, you could kind of remove that last part and essentially predicate your decision on something consistent with the master plan, but then allow them to demolish without any kind of timeline of when that future building may occur. That would be another. So there's different ways of achieving your end goal. But staff is trying to craft it so you're aware of those 2 things.
Yeah, I don't think the Wayne Theater Alliance is gonna pack up and leave town anytime soon, so, and they are an asset to the community. My concern is the safety of that building standing upright. 'Cause you've got a report in here from, structural engineer, I'm assuming is where it came from, that the foundation is gone, that joists are rotten, and who knows if they were to spend the $400,000 to jack that building up, that once they cracked the jack the first time, the building wouldn't fall apart on its own. And that's my concern, public safety. If it was to stay a grassy lot for 5 years, so be it. I mean, be a great place to sit and watch your fireworks for the extravaganza. Be a great place to hold little fundraising events. Because having been around and heard many other master plans, they're constantly changing into and morphing with whatever the current needs are. So I'm just looking at a public safety hazard from that aspect. Because my background is in construction, and that foundation does not look good. I wouldn't want to crawl under there and look around and look at it, I can tell you that. And I've been under some pretty old buildings in my time.
Are there any more discussions from the commissioners?
And I just want to remind you, we do have one letter that we forgot that we did receive, and it wasn't included in your packet, so I will read it into the record. To members of the Planning Committee, in my view, the house at 539 West Main adds significant historical character to the downtown area, and it would be a disappointment to see it torn down. The location at the top of the hill makes one feel they are entering the beginning of the historic area. The wraparound porch is charming and could be an inviting place to sit and view the downtown area. I understand the restoration costs are an issue, but may I suggest this proposal does not need to be viewed in an all or nothing manner. I suggest the original structure that faces the street be restored and repurposed. It could easily be an art gallery or a history gallery without a need for plumbing to save the cost of one expense. The back part that was added on later can be demolished and replaced with new construction. My inspiration for this suggestion comes from the Quirk Hotel in Charlottesville. My daughter was living in a historic home that was acquired by the developer, and she was forced to move. The city required preservation of 2 homes as part of the approval for the hotel. The homes were restored and are now part of the hotel amenities. One is used as a salon, the other a cafe lounge. I've included some photos and a link to a story. I hope you can consider that the demolition of this house would be a loss to the historical nature of the downtown. So that's just one letter we received.
Thank you. Is there,
I do have one. We do have a building inspector, correct?
Yes, so we have building inspectors, and the safety of the building would be evaluated by our building official, and
It
any,
hasn't been condemned yet.
yeah, and any decisions made about the safety of the building, sure. Yeah.
okay.
Can you tell us who wrote the letter?
I think we should. This one was by Elisa Gray, is the only thing that it says in the email.
Any further discussions from the commissioners? Is there a motion that we recommend the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the contributing structure to the downtown historic district, that it be approved on site redevelopment general conformance with the concepts presented in the master plan prepared by OTJ, and that such demolition permit review and approval be predicated on the site plan review and approval?
I recommend a motion to table the request to future meeting to allow the applicant time to finish their master planning process, expected to be the end of May 2024, so that the fully formed concept plan for the site can be shown to the planning commission.
With the presented motion not being properly second, there's a new motion that we recommend tabling the motion
No,
to the next planning commission.
you asked if you had a motion, you didn't forward a motion.
Well, I will forward that motion. Could it be properly second?
Properly seconded to the first motion?
Correct, the one that I proposed.
So I think he's clarifying that he was proposing it, not
Motion,
asking.
you asked for a proposal for a motion. I
No,
just-
no, I presented a motion.
No, you asked for a proposal. You said, do I have a motion to recommend?
Oh, but I think he was talking, can we just discuss for a minute? You were talking about the second one, but you proposed the
Yeah.
first one, right?
Yes, he asked for a motion to propose the second one.
Right,
But I
but you
moved.
proposed the first one.
Yes.
Okay,
So I would say that I think that the motion on the floor now would be Mr. Sloat's motion, and if it doesn't receive a second,
Right.
then it could always go back to, if you were trying to make that motion, Nigel, then it could go back to that motion. So is there a second?
So with that motion not being properly second, I bring back to the floor the motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness to demolish a contributing structure in the downtown historic district. Is there a second?
I just want to clarify, do you want to include after the concepts in the master plan, do you want to include that they have a site plan review and approval, or do you want to let them knock it down before then? Site plan, it's a long way from the master plan to a site plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would vary greatly on timeline. If you wanted to remove that section to essentially say that you would recommend that the certificate of appropriateness be approved based on sites redevelopment and general conformance with concepts presented in the master plan prepared by OTJ and leave it at that, then there wouldn't be any control over timing. But I do think staff would have the ability, if some plan came forth that was completely different than anything that was proposed in the master plan, that we could say, well, that's not in keeping with what the Planning Commission had desired. So you could strike that after OTJ and have that, if that would be your desire.
I'll make that motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness that is in general conformance with the concepts presented in the master plan prepared by OTJ. Is there a second?
I will second it.
second.
I'll second it with removing after the comma.
Yeah.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Phil, what was your vote?
I said aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay. Number 7 on the agenda is a public hearing for a conditional use permit request by Melvin Garrison III. We will now have a presentation by staff.
Alessandra, you're tireless tonight.
2 down, a couple more to go. One more. Okay, so this is a conditional use permit request for townhouses in the HB district. So just a quick reminder about conditional use permits. They allow for case-by-case review of uses which may be but are not always compatible with the neighboring uses. The proposed use must be consistent with good zoning practice, no more adverse to health, safety, or comfort of persons living or working in the area than use is generally permitted, and then no more detrimental economically otherwise to property or improvements in the surrounding area than use is generally permitted. So the subject property is located along King Avenue in the northern part of the city. It's a large field located basically directly across from William Perry Elementary. So the applicant is requesting a CUP to build approximately 79 townhouses in the HB district, which is our highway business district. And the parcel is about 9.471 acres. Here's a quick look at the surrounding uses. Of course, you got William Perry across the street. You've got Kingsway. I believe those are townhouses, sort of across the street. You got the parcel backs right up to the food line, the self-storage facility off of Hopeman. You have a couple vacant parcels on the sort of western side of the property, and then you've got sort of a mix of single-family and townhouses down to the south. This is the concept plan that was submitted by the applicant for this application. There's a little bit of review of it. Basically, it has a primary entrance off of King Avenue, and then it does propose to additional road connections to the neighboring parcels should those ever develop. As far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, the property has been designated as commercial and retail. The comprehensive plan encourages more compact residential development closer to the areas of intense activity, such as this area with the commercial uses primarily fronting on Hopeman. This particular parcel doesn't front on Hopeman. It is across the street from the elementary school, sort of off the beaten path of the main arterial here. But this parcel does have shopping because of the food line right there, and also there's a bus stop located not too far along the road, so it does have some residential amenities located nearby in addition to being across the street from the school. It is zoned highway business, wherein townhouses are permitted by a CUP. Across the street where the school is located is you've got some RG5, which are general residential district, and RS7, which are single-family residential. You also have RMF zone properties to the north across the street on King Avenue, and then directly to the south, and then also back here along King. The zoning ordinance does require that property used for townhouses or multifamily buildings in an HB district be at least 20,000 square feet in size, and this property does meet that requirement due to its size at 9.471 acres. The applicant is proposing 79 townhouses for this particular parcel, which puts it at a density of about 8.3 units per acre. This is slightly above the density permitted by the RG5 standards and slightly below the density permitted by the RMF standards, which is our residential multifamily. The density does have the potential to increase because of the new townhouse parking requirements once finally approved by council, which should take place next Monday. And sort of regarding this, because the density requirements for a conditional use permit be set at this stage. Staff is recommending that the development be built to the RMF standards at the 10 units per acre. And then also that it's built in general conformance with the site plan submitted by the applicant. Built to the RMF standards because many of the surrounding properties have a similar zoning, so it would be compatible with those neighboring properties. Once again, this is another look at the concept plan and the layout of the townhouses as they're proposing. As far as impacts to adjacent properties go, the property is surrounded by a mix of commercial and residential uses of varying densities. You have townhouses located near the property on both sides of King Avenue, and then you also have single-family detached located in the surrounding vicinity. And then much of the property within the vicinity of this particular parcel is zoned RMF. And so this development is in that way consistent with the surrounding zoning. It would not be too out of place. The development would be accessed by one boulevard-style entrance from William Perry, across from William Perry Elementary. And staff is also recommending condition that this style entrance that's shown on the concept plan, I'll show you again here in a minute, be provided once on that preliminary plat, once that comes in, that a similar entrance be shown. This is primarily due to concerns about emergency access. Boulevard entrances permit, show it real quick, permit so there's still a means of access even if one side potentially gets shut off. And then also the concept plan shows 2 future road connections shown on the western side of the property. If those parcels were ever to be developed, then those connections would be made, allowing for additional access and street connectivity in that area. The applicants did complete a turn lane warrant analysis and to see if this development would trigger turn lanes on King Avenue, and those improvements were not warranted by the turn lane analysis. This development did not trigger that. And then here quickly, these are the 2 entrances, the 2 road access points on the western side of the property, in case those other parcels eventually develop, those connections will be made, and then again, that boulevard style entrance. As far as infrastructure goes, there is an existing sidewalk network along King Avenue, and the development itself would also have sidewalks, so there is an existing sidewalk network there. There is public water and sewer available at the property. The requirements regarding that will be determined at the public improvement stage, along with the available fire flow. This development would be in that William Perry Elementary School District, so there, again, could be an increase in students for the district. At this time, the city schools do not have concerns about capacity. And then just quickly to go over the next steps, if the CUP is ultimately approved by council, the applicant would submit a preliminary plat for review and approval by the Planning Commission. So staff would do an initial review to ensure compliance with the zoning and subdivision ordinances, and then once that process is complete, bring it before you all for that public hearing. And in addition, the public improvement plan would be submitted to Public Works for review and approval. So in conclusion, townhouses are, once again, permitted in the HB district by CUP. The proposed development is located in an area with transit access and existing sidewalk network. It would also be consistent with the zoning of the surrounding area, which is the RMF. Necessary utilities are present, and the city schools do have capacity for additional students. So staff is recommending approval of the CUP with the 3 conditions. The first, that the development be developed in general conformance with that concept plan that was submitted by the applicants, that it be built according to the area and dimensional standards of the RMF district and the zoning ordinance, and that a boulevard-style entrance be provided as the primary access for the development off of King Avenue. And that is all I have for you, and happy to answer any questions. And the applicants are also here tonight to address any questions.
So the difference between recommendation 1 and 2 is just so for recommendation 2 just modifies the density of the townhomes, and then recommendation 1 just make sure that they're in general compliance with the aesthetic of the rest of the surrounding townhomes?
The first condition is just that what you see on that concept that was submitted by the applicant, that the preliminary plat look generally like that once it's submitted. And the second one, it's setting those density requirements for this particular development. So they abide by the RMF standards and the zoning ordinance as they're doing their preliminary plat design.
Okay.
And if I understood your question right, Nigel, they're not, this is unlike the previous one that we just did that had kind of multiple different recommendations. Staff is recommending approval with these conditions. So 1 and 2 aren't in conflict with each other.
Correct.
1 is just saying this is what the layout will look like, and 2 represents what that density number is.
Yeah, I think that was what I was confirming. Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Is this a by right development, Allison?
It's, no, because of the property zoning of highway business, a CUP would be required, conditional use permit be required for the development to happen here.
Okay. Just want to double check.
So you would get this twice, essentially. You know, tonight, if you approve it, you would be approving the conditional use permit. You would be giving the land entitlements that it doesn't have under the current zoning ordinance. Once those entitlements are given through the conditional use permit, or if given through the conditional use permit, then they would follow up with a preliminary plat, which are things that you'll be hearing later on in the meeting with a different development, but that's when the entitlements have already been given through the zoning, and that it is then considered by right, and it is meeting the existing ordinance. So if approved, you are giving the property that is currently only allowed to have business on it, and maybe some upper story residential uses, but mainly it's designated for business, but you would be saying through the conditional use permit, it made sense to do residential at that development, if that answers your question.
Are there any more questions for staff?
Just the entryway, is that directly across from the entryway into the school? Or is it offset?
It is directly across.
Is there any compromise as far as, okay, on the HB district, you can't have housing unless it's second story. Is there any compromise from having that going to the high density by allowing townhomes? I guess it's either you stay at HB or you allow townhouses and jump to 79 units. Is that correct?
I mean, the current zoning is business right now, so their current entitlements on the property would be any type of business development.
Right.
They're requesting to get residential entitlements that they currently don't have. In highway business, we do allow residential above ground floor business. So by right, they could have some ground floor business with apartments above. Or they could do a CUP to have apartments now. Or they can do a CUP to have townhouses. So their current zoning allows them to do any range of business or ground floor business with apartments above. But in order to have townhouse units, they're requesting a conditional use permit within the business zoning. And that would allow them to do business if they wanted business. But as it appears, they want to do townhouse development, and this CUP would allow them that ability. But if not approved, then the zoning allows for all range of business, business on the ground floor, and apartments above are acceptable within our highway business district.
Was the traffic study done as it relates to King Avenue, or was it done as it relates to the traffic that comes out, goes down King, and is at Holtman?
So the turn lane analysis was completed for King to see if, based on the size of the development, it does not trip a full-blown traffic impact analysis according to VDOT standards. So instead, we had them provide a turn lane warrant analysis to determine whether the development would trigger left or right turn lanes within the development. And that analysis showed that it did not, based on the average daily trips that exist on King currently, and then what extra trips this development would generate, turn lanes were not warranted. But it was to King Avenue exclusively. But based on, I guess, 2022 data is the latest that we have for VDOT that says what's the average daily trips on King Avenue today. And we also confirmed with VDOT that 2022 is the latest and greatest data. And with a corridor like King that has been mostly developed, the most you would really assume for a growth rate would be, roughly 1% a year, possibly, because it's mostly developed. And that they felt like even if that were to be factored in, this development would not trigger turn lanes.
Any other questions for staff?
So under its current zoning, I could put a vape shop there, right?
It could, yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
Too bad Will's not here.
Well, I don't think there's any other questions for staff. Would the applicant wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Lee Garrison. I reside in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I don't have much to add. Alice Ann pretty much covered all the details. I welcome any questions. I do have gentleman from Balls here. Bill will be able to answer any questions. He ran the traffic analysis for turn lanes. Mr. Moore also looked at traffic 100% from each direction. You have to kind of split it coming from either way, and we looked at a worst-case scenario, 100% coming from the north, 100% coming from the south, and still did not trigger the turn lanes. Regarding the traffic, I think it would be good to note that if it was developed 9 acres of business, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it would be higher traffic counts than the residential that's proposed, right around 500 trips per day, I think. 9 acres of business would be significantly more than that. We did look at it in the HB zoning, by right use, business. Unfortunately, in that area, we've got vacant parcels in front of the Food Lion that are still vacant with road frontage on Hopeman Parkway. So this site lends itself more towards residential, with residential surrounding it, and have spoken to the owners of some of the businesses there on Hopeman, and they were in support of residential to help bring customers to their businesses and to the mini stores next door. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Moore is here to answer any engineering questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Why townhouses and not single-family housing? I think I already know the answer, but it's money.
It's twofold. It's the development costs and the density that you get on the property, but it's also trying to hit a specific price point for the consumer. With the number of homes you could do with detached, with the way the property lays out, it lends itself to the townhomes, and trying to hit an entry point. We all know what's going on with home prices, trying to keep things semi-affordable. When I tell you 300,000 is affordable, a while ago, that didn't seem to be affordable, but that is the reason.
Just one, did the traffic study take into account the developments that are being processed now that haven't sold out yet?
Bill?
Nothing in the future was anticipated other than growth factors on King Avenue.
But we did try to look at worst case, considering 100% coming from the north, 100% coming from the south, instead of a normal split.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
fine, it's just,
Yeah. Okay,
that's my district ward.
understood.
And that's why I asked about the entry in front of the school.
Right.
Because that
Yeah,
area is funky
and we
with
looked at
traffic.
that, and VDOT normally won't let us offset the entrances. It has to line up, and that's one of the reasons we did the boulevard, to have the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay,
That's good stuff.
thank you.
Were there any other questions for the applicant or his team? No? Thank you. I would like to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up or any letters?
We have not received any letters and no one signed up to speak, no.
Okay, I closed the public hearing. Any discussion from the commissioners? No? Okay, is there a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the CUP with conditions number 1, 2, and 3 as stated by staff.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Phil,
Oh, I said aye.
aye. Okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay, next, number 8 on the agenda is a public hearing for a preliminary subdivision plot requested by Greenwood Homes. Staff, I invite staff for their presentation.
Okay, so the next three public hearings all deal with Creekwood Village or the parcel directly adjacent to Creekwood Village. And so what I'd like to do because of that, to hopefully make it as clear as possible, I'm going to start with a brief overview of the Creekwood Village subdivision, which was approved several years ago, and then launch into the first one, the Phase 2 amendment. So with that, this is the Creekwood Village subdivision as currently approved. Just a quick look at the surrounding uses. You've got several subdivisions to the north with Silver Creek and Cure Heights, and then also Rosser Avenue to the east. Then you have the commercial development to the south with Grand's, Martin's, and Walmart. To the west, you have sort of a mix. You got the Future Secure Store coming in off of Ludewitt by Bookerdale. You have Pratt's Run across Ludewitt, and then also DeWitt Crossing up north. Just to give you an idea of the area we're working with. So back in 2020, the overall Creekwood Village property was rezoned. It's about 70.687 acres. It was rezoned from highway business and RS12, which is our single-family residential large lot, to RG5, general residential, and RMF, the multifamily residential. It was subject to a concept plan and then several proffers. In 2021, they submitted a preliminary plat approval for just the RG5 zoned area, which is about 51.25 acres. And that preliminary plat was approved for 220 lots with a mix of single-family detached, attached, and townhouses. And they began construction, I believe, in late 2021. This is a look at that concept plan that was approved as part of the rezoning. This is the area that was preliminary platted. This is the RMF zoned area. And then this in red here is area that was to be dedicated to the city for right-of-way for a future Ludewitt to Rosser Avenue road connection potentially. This is a look at the approved preliminary plat. And here again, this is the RMF area over here, and then this was the area that was platted at the time. The areas that we'll be focusing on tonight first will be Phase 2, which is this little cul-de-sac area right here. Phase 4, what they're referring to as Phase 4, which is Creekwood at Bookerdale. This is a preliminary plat that they've submitted along the, see, it fronts on Bookerdale Road, and then it backs up to Creekwood Village right here. And then finally would be Phase 3, what they're referring to as Phase 3, which is that RMF zoned area right here. So with that, I'll go into the first one, which is the Phase 2 amendment. And as I mentioned, it's that cul-de-sac right here. What they're looking to do is to change the cul-de-sac from the cul-de-sac to the through road so that they can access that parcel that they acquired that backs up to Bookerdale. This change would result in an additional 2 lots, so it would be 222 lots instead of the 220 that was originally approved. And this gives you an idea of what that would look like with the Phase 4 development. So that cul-de-sac would become a through road and then give access to the lots, potentially platted lots back here. And this shows how it fits in with the overall Creekwood Village layout per the development map that the applicants provided. So as far as zoning analysis goes, it is zoned RG5, which has a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. The lots in this section all meet that requirement. They range in size from 5,783 to 7,702 square feet. The utilities, they did submit an updated hydrologic analysis, and it did show that the water and sewer demands could be met. The stormwater, it would be managed by, this particular small area in particular would be served by the overall Phase 2 wet pond that's located sort of behind. And with that, the applicant's amended plat meets the standards of the subdivision and zoning ordinance, and staff is recommending approval of it. And that is all I have for you on that one. Happy to answer any questions. And the applicants are also here tonight to respond to any questions.
Any questions for staff? No? Okay. Okay. Alice Ann?
Yes.
He has a
Now, phase 2, that's the one with the cul-de-sac, right?
I'm sorry?
Phase 2 is the phase with the cul-de-sac that
Yes.
you're talking about changing?
Yes, this is the cul-de-sac, changing it to the through road. They're changing it, this cul-de-sac sort of stopped right here, and so they're changing it to a through road so they can access the parcel they've acquired behind it.
What was the plan beforehand as far as, because this was laid out as a cul-de-sac? Was plant phase 4 an afterthought? Because how would they access it unless they get that through road through that cul-de-sac?
I probably should let the applicant respond to how exactly they've acquired that property. It was not included as part of the original approved preliminary plat, that particular parcel. And so they're requesting this change so that they can access that parcel that they've acquired.
So it's not just getting 2 extra lots, it's to get access to how many, 29?
29 lots as part of Phase 4.
Okay.
And let me guess, the Phase 4 is a little over 10 acres?
I believe that's correct. I would like to look back at my notes to double check.
No, the reason I'm guessing that is because I'm guessing that's the 10 acres that the couple bought as their retirement home before the Creekwood development got approved and was upset that it went in.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff?
If it didn't get the cul-de-sac, would you still build on that property but have to link to Bookerdale? Is a cul-de-sac just a way to not have to link to secondary road?
Yeah.
And the applicants have stated that the connection to Bookerdale isn't feasible due to several limitations of that particular parcel, namely the elevation between Bookerdale and the property is too steep.
And our ordinance requires interconnectivity among parcels, so that area that has since been acquired by Creekwood is already zoned for residential development, so it can be, it can be developed. This is just the platting process. The zoning is in place for this development, so staff would not approve a development that did not provide that connection. So it is in keeping with our subdivision ordinance that interconnectivity is provided to an adjacent property that is now acquired by this developer that is zoned for residential development and is platted according to its current zoning designation.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? No? Thank you, Alice. Would the applicant wish to speak?
Thank you, Allison. I'm Chris Schooley. I'm Vice President of Development for Greenwood Homes. I think I guess we're talking about Phase 4 and Phase 2 together because their access is similar. To answer your question, the Bookerdale property was owned by a family. There was a sad story about a dog attack and their grandchild who passed away from the dog situation. Then there was a lawsuit, and they came to us looking for a way to help with that situation, to alleviate some of those issues. We bought the property. Feasibility in Augusta County where there's rock is kind of always a gray term. It's feasible that we could get to this property from Bookerdale. It's probably not in anybody's best interest because Bookerdale in itself, as we know, is not the best street in Waynesboro. Since we already owned the rest of the property, it seemed reasonable to remove the cul-de-sac and make this connection. We also studied another section which connected, let me point really quickly. We studied another connection here, which is also, this is phase 1D, into this section. Both of those are feasible. We thought that this made the most sense to remove the cul-de-sac and make the connection in this section. So to clarify, we'll get to phase 3 here in a second. Phase 2, the only change is that one image that Allison prepared that showed the difference between the cul-de-sac and the connection. And then we'll get to phase 4, which is a by right development here in a second. But if you have any other questions, just please let us know. Thank you.
Absolutely. Were there any questions for the applicant? Okay. I would like to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up or letters?
We did not receive any letters, and we have no one signed to speak up on the Phase 2 amendment.
Okay. I hereby close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the applicant's amendment to meet the standards that's set forth?
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 9 on the agenda is the public hearing for the preliminary subdivision plat with a presentation from staff.
Okay, so we're moving on to Creekwood at Bookdale, or otherwise known as Phase 4. So this is that large parcel right there, bordering on Bookerdale Road. So this property is 10.113 acres, and it's currently in an undeveloped state, primarily wooded. And some of the quick look at the uses, got the DeWitt Crossing, Silver Creek, and of course Creekwood Village down here. The Catholic Church across DeWitt, and along with Pratt's Run. So this is a major subdivision preliminary plat that is by right with no waivers, which means the city has no discretion to deny it as long as the applicant satisfies the requirements of the ordinance. It is for 29 single-family detached units on lot sizes that range from 7,195 square feet to 23,799 square feet. And this is another look at that preliminary plat. A little bit closer in. The property is zoned RS7, which is our single-family residential small lot. It requires a 7,000 square foot minimum lot size, and the applicants are meeting this requirement based on the preliminary plat submitted. The comprehensive plan has designated this area as mixed-use E, which was envisioned to accommodate transitional uses, retail service uses, compact residential development, and then an office. So the Creekwood Village, more broadly, contains denser residential development on the south side, neighboring the Martins, Grants, and Walmart, and then sort of transitions to more single-family attached and detached as it trends northward. And Phase 4 complements this transition with the single-family detached. As far as traffic and access go, the development will be accessed from within the Creekwood Village subdivision and through that Phase 2 amendment, that through road right there. No connection to Bookerdale or the adjacent parcels is proposed. The subdivision will provide 50-foot right-of-ways, which will include 26-foot wide streets, not including the curb. We'll have sidewalks, the sidewalk grass buffer strip. I believe they're 5-foot sidewalks. And there'll also be street trees provided in 5-foot landscaping easements on either side. As far as utilities go, the applicants did submit a hydrological analysis that showed the water and sewer demands can be met for this development. Stormwater management, Phase 4 will be served by a wet pond located in the Phase 2 development area. Right here is where that wet pond will be. And then the final configuration of any utilities and stormwater management will be reviewed and approved during that public improvement plan process, which is the next step. So staff's determined that the applicant appears to have met the standards of the subdivision and zoning ordinances, and staff is therefore recommending approval.
Any questions for staff?
Oh, can you show a layout of where that wet pond is in Phase 2? I'm not familiar with it. Do you have a picture of it on the map, or?
I don't have it on the map. Its general area is right there, which on the layout, it's right here, sort of on the northern side of the
Okay.
property.
So it actually adjoins this, what you're talking about, okay?
Any other questions for staff? No? Thank you, Allison. Would the applicant wish to speak? Okay. I would like to open the public hearing.
So we don't have anybody signed up to speak, but we did receive an email today. So to the members of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission, my name is Fred McGann. I live at 7399 Wilson Road, Henrico, Virginia. My wife Kathy and I have owned the property across Brookerdale Road from this 30-lot subdivision for over 30 years, and we both grew up in Waynesboro. We approve of this project and feel that they will make good home sites with beautiful views. Their connection to the existing Creekwood project plan makes good sense. Our concern is for the protection of our property from flooding and erosion and for protection of water resources of the Pratt's Run watershed from potential excess stormwater runoff generated by this project. There is a large, deep source, ever-flowing spring on our property and 2 intersecting branches of Pratt's Run Creek that flow from other springs upstream that meet on our property and flow from our property under Bookerdale Bridge. We have worked with the city since we have owned our property to protect this precious water resource as it flows to the South River. The creek along Bookerdale is on city property. I have been in communication with city staff since receiving this notice and have expressed our concerns. They have been helpful in explaining the process towards final approval and construction of the project. We ask that your commission support city and state stormwater guidelines and laws that are meant to protect adjacent properties and water resources as approval of this project moves forward and more detailed plans are presented. Thank you.
And just for clarification, with the stormwater management that's being included, I'm assuming that would fall in guidelines with,
So, what we spoke to the individual that wrote this letter about is that at this stage, it's very conceptual, that they're identifying this is likely where the stormwater from this development would go. And staff's looking that, generally there's area and there's no concerns about meeting that. But certainly when it gets to the public improvement plan stage, which Public Works and the city engineer and various departments approve, yes, they're going to be looking to make sure any flows from the site meet state and city requirements. So that hasn't all been engineered at this time. This just conceptually shows that it would go to a certain pond, but the public improvement plans would have that detail, and we are required to abide by state requirements
so it would be.
for water quality and quantity, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, I hereby close the public hearing. Is there any discussion from the commissioners? No, okay. I make a motion to approve staff's recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Number 10 on the agenda is public hearing for preliminary subdivision plat requested, Phase 3, presentation by staff.
Okay, so we're moving on. We're now on the multifamily portion of the property with this one. So this is a preliminary plat amendment because it is still part of that overall property. So here again is just a quick look at the sort of overview. This is where that section of the property is. Overall, Creekwood Village acreage is 70.68 acres, and the property being subject to this preliminary plat amendment is about 10.93 acres, the RMF zoned portion. So the preliminary plat amendment, here again, it's by right zoned, no discretion denied as long as the applicant satisfies the requirements of the ordinance. They are proposing 87 lots for townhouse development with lot sizes that range from 2,000 square feet to 4,894 square feet. Here's a closer look at that preliminary plat. It would be primarily accessed from Tiffany Drive, which would be improved up to its entrance. This is the main entrance to this part of the subdivision. And then Tiffany Drive would be improved up to that point where right-of-way would be dedicated to the city for that hoped-for future connector road between Luderit and Rosser. They'll also be providing secondary access per their proffer through an emergency access road to a, again, future secondary connection right here. So the property is zoned the RMF, the multifamily residential, which permits townhouses on 2,000 square foot lots at 10 units per acre. And all the lots shown on this particular plat meet this requirement. Here again, the comprehensive plan does designate this area as mixed use E, which is envisioned to accommodate those transitional uses. Creekwood, as I said just a few minutes ago, Creekwood has multiple types of housing. It has the denser residential on the southern side, transitioning to the single-family detached as it moves northward. And this complements that transition as the development moves north. So as far as traffic and access goes, as I mentioned, the property would be accessed from Tiffany Drive. Right here would be the main access point. And per the proffer that the applicants offered during the rezoning process, there needed to be some sort of secondary access. It could be a full public road or it could be emergency access. And so they will be providing a future road connection potential right here, but then also that emergency access point, that emergency access road that wraps back around to Tiffany, which will be improved up to that right-of-way dedication line. So that is where secondary means of emergency access will be provided. And eventually, that will be a full secondary connection right here if that Ludewitt and Rosser Road happens. As far as Tiffany Drive goes, it will be a 60-foot right-of-way that's improved to the right-of-way that will be dedicated to the city. It'll include a multi-use path along one side, and they're showing it along the, I guess it's the western side, although it looks like the northern side in this particular picture. And then street trees will be on either side of that. Just a quick look at the road section. You have the multi-use path on the one side, and street trees on either side. The interior streets will be the public interior streets will be 50-foot right-of-way with sidewalks and trees and street trees provided in 5-foot landscaping easements on either side. Where parking is permitted on one side of the street will be 30 feet wide, and then where it is not, it'll be about 24 feet wide. As with the other Creekwood properties, they did submit the updated hydrological analysis that showed the water and sewer demands could be met. Stormwater management, this phase will be served by a wet pond located sort of behind the development. Let's see if I can, yeah, it'll be in this area, sort of behind the development. And again, here, the final configuration of the utilities and also the stormwater and how it will be managed will be reviewed and approved during that public improvement plan review process. And staff does feel that the applicant has met the standards of the subdivision and zoning ordinance, and we are recommending approval.
Any questions for staff? No? Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone who has signed up to speak or a letter?
No one has signed up to speak, and we have not received any letters, no.
Okay, I hereby close the public hearing. Would the applicant wish to speak?
Thank you again. We just wanted to make one point. This section of Creekwood has always been held out as potential for multifamily. We've studied it over the years. We have a multifamily partner that we do apartment projects with. With the current interest rate market, almost all multifamily projects are kind of shut down for a while. It's very difficult to borrow money and make apartment projects work. Townhouses in a for sale environment seems to meet the market best for Waynesboro. That's why we transitioned away from apartments to townhouses in this section.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? No? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 4-1. Item 11 on the agenda is to review a minor subdivision and final subdivision plats approved since the March 19th meeting. This is 2020.
Yeah, I just have one clarifying point that I think we should make for the last approval. And this is just a minor item, but the parking configuration that was recently reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved by, or what we thought was approved by council for the 0.5 guest parking spaces, after going back, the council did not specifically determine what guest parking, whether it be 0.25 or 0.5. So the assumption is on Monday night, they'll be finalizing that. So if you could just amend your motion to say that you approve Phase 3 of Creekwood contingent upon council's approval of the townhouse parking, guest parking, then it's just clear.
I'll amend my motion to make the motion contingent on the approval of city council parking.
Is there a second?
I'll second again.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay.
They shouldn't leave. Now's when the fun really happens.
And then this is back to item 11. There is a typo for 2024. This says 2023.
It does.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Apologize for that.
No. I just wanted to make sure that I was seeing things properly.
No, that's meant to say March 19th, 2024.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, it's a long list.
It's,
It'll be here all
yeah,
night.
we'd be here the rest of the night. Okay, so I do have a couple for you tonight. We're going to start with 1400 North Delphine. This is on the very northern side of the city. It was formerly home to a single-family residential. The plat that was submitted was going to redraw the lot lines, create 3 lots for single-family attached and then also detached. Slightly better look at it. The next one I have for you is at 1072 Ivanhoe Avenue, over on the eastern part of the city off of Delphine. And this one was reconfiguring the lot lines. It was shown as, it was formerly 3 lots, and they were consolidating it down to 2 lots to do single-family attached.
Would there be pictures of what that would look like, or is that not needed?
That's not needed in this
Okay.
case.
Now, where is that at on Ivanhoe?
It's at the tail end of Ivanhoe, right as you hit the county.
Oh, okay, so it's down the hill that way, okay.
Yeah. The next one I have for you is at 1314 Second Street, also on the eastern side of the city. Here again, this was originally 3 lots that fronted on Second Street, and they're reorienting those lots so that they front on Ivanhoe. The next one, I believe this might be the last one, was 164 North Delphine. This was once home to a single-family house that I believe was demolished and removed. And this one was just subdivided to create single-family attached units.
Is that the lot across from a church?
Yes.
Where the old, right beside the old blue house? The house that's right beside it is painted bright blue.
Okay. And I was right, that was the last one I had for you tonight.
Okay. Any action?
No, those are just for information.
Okay. Is there any matters from staff?
I don't have anything other than to remind you that the next meeting is May 21st.
Is there any commissioners' correspondence or communication? Okay, with that, I would like to make the motion to adjourn. Do I properly have a second?
I'll second.
Lord, yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.